What a couple of weeks it's been. Kevin, first and foremost, you made me cry, man. You made me cry last week as I listened to you with Josh and listened to your emotional recap of what it was like to be at the Pleasantville-Camden game. Wow. I can't even put into words how powerful that interview was, and thank you for sharing your story.
No problem, Pete. Yeah, it was a tough, couple of days in the aftermath of everything. But yeah, that was like I've said, and I wrote. I think a lot of the innocence of high school athletics was taken away that night, and it's sad that the young boy had ultimately passed away from the gunshot wounds. But it was. It puts a lot into perspective, and I was talking to a couple people last night at Williamstown, and they had asked me about it, and the first thing that hit me yesterday when I pretty much walked, I was maybe 10, 15 feet from the front gate at Williamstown, and any other game, any other time prior to last week, I would have thought nothing about it. But the first thing that hit me when I walked in was, where are the police? And that shouldn't happen. So, I think, like I also mentioned before, I think that that was something that will never go away. And that every time I go into a high school, whether it's a high school sporting event, whether it's a winter concert, whatever it may be, I think that's probably what I'm going to think about first. And, it's something that I will live with. And obviously I think there are a lot more people that were impacted by the whole situation than myself, but it did take away, what my feelings were for a long time about high school sports.
No doubt. In the wake and the aftermath, you've come across some unbelievable stories too, including the column you put up this week. In a moment of fear, Camden football senior took on the role of a hero, and by starting that off too with the EMTs and the police officers and the security guards and firefighters, retired firefighter, that's the old axiom too, is people are running away. These are the folks that run toward the danger, the true heroes. And then you told the story of Kenneth Smith. I wonder if you could share some of that with our listeners.
Yeah, Kenny Smith is a senior for Camden. He's the starting center. And to be quite honest with you, I had never met him before. And Kenny Smith, the only Kenny Smith I know prior to that,
TNT,
played in North Carolina. Yeah. Played in North Carolina and I was on TNT doing basketball games. But in talking to Coach Dwayne Savage after the game, and they after completing that at Lincoln Financial Field, and before I go on, the Eagles did a fabulous job with that, and they should really be recognized for what they did for both teams on that day. But Dwayne brings up that he didn't even hear until that day. We're talking 5 days after the fact, that one of his players, in the moment, as he's following his teammates out, and they're looking for somewhere to hide. They go to the bleachers, and he sees this little girl, and he knows nothing of the little girl. He doesn't know her name, has never seen her before, but he sees that she is crying. She's obviously scared and fearful, and he basically took her under his wing and made sure that she would be safe, only to find out later that she's actually the sister of a teammate. So, for a kid who, he's heard gunshots before. He knew from the very first bang it was a gunshot. For a kid to react not only, for himself, but to see something like that and not even blink, tells you a little bit about the kid and the character. So, policemen, like we said, firefighters, the first responders, absolutely heroes. Kenny Smith, I think, was one as well.
Kevin Minnick's with us. Kevin Minnick from NJ.com, NJ Advanced Media, his Twitter handle @KMinnickSports. And, You mentioned the Eagles and the job they did. If you could just spend a couple minutes to describe that situation too, because they really did go all out. You know, they did the smoke with the introductions. I mean, the kids each had every kid had a nameplate above his locker, and then probably the coup de grace was, you know, out comes Carson Wentz, out comes Fletcher Cox, out comes Malcolm Jenkins. All the leadership council of the Eagles all wanted to come over there and shake those guys' hands and say that they were thinking of them. That was outstanding.
Yeah, you know, when everybody was kind of into the stadium and the kids had finally come out, they basically lined up both teams right down the middle of the field on the hash marks. And I don't think that the kids knew what was happening next. And then, you know, up to that point, and I had mentioned this to Larry White, the executive president of NJSAA. I said, you know, there was eerily silence in that building prior to the Eagles coming out. You know, there was still this, you know, are we really here? And we are here, but we're here for the wrong reason. And it was kind of, I really felt it was very quiet. And then the Eagles came out, and like you mentioned, you know, it wasn't, you know, no disrespect to the Eagles. It wasn't a third stringer. It wasn't a practice squad. It was guys that these kids see every week. And these are the guys that are on TV, and these guys are the leaders of this team. And, you know, every one of them, they went down one side and shook the hand of every kid and doubled back and did the same thing for the other team. And then they took some pictures with the kids. They took pictures with, I don't know if they were parents that were on the field. I don't think so. They may have been like administrators or you know, some people that from both schools that were on the field with the kids. Mm-hmm. You know, they took pictures. They talked to them. And, you know, it wasn't a long period of time. It was just, you know, it may have been 5, if 10 minutes at the very most. But it really felt like they did not rush to come in, say hello, wish them well, and leave. They kind of spent some time with these kids, and you know, like all of them said, you know, for them to play there and to be there was a great experience. It was an awesome opportunity. They got a lot of things. You know, they were able to be in the locker room and really, you know, get the whole 9 yards. You know, but in the same vein, they did realize that, you know, this was not really where they wanted to be, you know, because of the circumstances. So, but, you know, I think the Eagles were just fabulous. They really were. And it released the tension, I think, that was kind of in that building at that time. And all of a sudden, you know, there were cheers and there were claps and there were smiles. And I think everybody kind of needed that.
Very much so. Kevin Minnick's with us here on the Pete Thompson Show on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, high school football does move on. Camden wins that game to advance to the sectional final against Cedar Creek. That's who they'll play next. That's on November 30th. But first, we have to talk about some games from last night, a game today, as the football playoffs do roll on. And, boy, in South Jersey Group 5, you were there as a member of the media. You didn't have to buy a ticket, but you gladly would have paid for a ticket for the show that you got to watch at Williamstown last night. Tell us about that Williamstown game to start with.
Yeah, I mean, the first time that these two teams played, it was a real battle, and Lenape had led at the half 13-0, and Williamstown came back and won that game 28-21. Junior quarterback Dougie Brown kind of led the resurgence in that game, and you know, this one was looking very, very much the same. You know, Lenape goes up 10-0 at the half. The first half is kind of a battle of defenses. You know, no, the offenses really weren't generating much at that point. Lenape goes up. They score Xavier Coleman scores on a 4-yard touchdown run, and then they tack on a field goal with 2 seconds left in the half. And you're kind of thinking, okay, well, Lenape, this can't happen again. You know, Lenape can't allow Williamstown back in this game again. And, you know, lo and behold, Williamstown didn't blink, and they didn't get flustered and start pointing fingers. They got right back to it. They came out. and Dougie Brown did it again. And, he leads them. He did throw 2 interceptions in the game, but he led that team to a pair of scoring drives, game-winning touchdown with a little over, I believe it was a minute and so left. Turner Inge, who had really had a fabulous game for Williamstown, scored a 1-yard run for their first lead and what proves to be the game-winning touchdown, and Williamstown defends its title. So, Williamstown has been a second-half team all year. I think a lot of people may have had some doubts that they could come back again, given the way that first half had gone. But, all credit to Williamstown, and, the defense rose to the occasion. Lenape didn't have a first down in the second half until its final possession. And I look back at the math, and, they had been held to less than 50 yards of total offense in the second half. And I think it was 30 or 35 of those came on the final possession. So Williamstown locked down on defense and did what it had to do, and, finds itself back in that regional championship game.
Yeah, they do, and they're going to face Cherokee on the other side. And you wrote about or tweeted about, Cherokee and the turnaround that they've had. Pretty unbelievable how quick, how fast.
Yeah, historically, Cherokee is one of the elite programs in South Jersey high school football. I believe going into last night they had 10 sectional titles, may have been 11, but they're a team that 2 years last year, 1-8, and that simply is not the way things have been going in the history of Cherokee football. So, they come back this year, they work their way back. They actually had a 4-game losing streak going into the playoffs. So obviously things are not, momentum-wise, they're not looking real good. And what do they do? They go out and they knock off 2 higher-seeded teams, and they host the sectional final for, the Central side, and beat Kingsway pretty decisively yesterday. Billy Osborne is a junior quarterback for the Chiefs who, if I remember right, ran for 2 touchdowns and threw 2 touchdown passes last night. And here's a kid who missed all of last season to injury. So, for them to come back this year and get an opportunity and take advantage of those opportunities, maybe Cherokee football is back on the map.
Before I forget, when we had Mike McGarry on in the first hour, he put out the argument, and I'll throw it up for you as well for consideration, that the West Jersey Football League American Division may not only be the best division in football in the state, but one of the better divisions in the country.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go that far. I don't have a point of reference for the rest of the country, but obviously, yes, that division has performed extremely well this year. Every team in that division either won a sectional title or played in a sectional final. I had St. Augustine playing in a state semifinal, and then you throw in RV, Rancocas Valley, which had a very difficult season this year, and I think that was part of the cycle of high school sports where they were really, really top-loaded seniors in the last couple of years and just had a lot of inexperienced guys this year. But RV is a team that had played in 3 straight sectional finals in the past. So, throw that, into the mix as well. And, for a division to produce that kind of caliber talent, is really a great thing for them. And, second to none, right behind them is the division, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the Independence, which features Willingboro, Camden, Cedar Creek, another group of teams that are capable and have won championships. Throw Delsey in there, a team who's been a perennial power in Group 3. So, I think those 2 divisions in the West Jersey Football League, they really kind of jump out at me as being the elite, and those teams have really, really taken care of business this year.
Yeah, that Independence division: Cedar Creek, Oak Crest, Mainland, Absegami, St. Joe. I mean, that's. Let me think here. You were looking for Camden, right?
I got the wrong name. I'll admit I got the wrong.
No, I'll get it. I'm trying to help you. Between the 2 of us, we ought to be able to figure it out, right?
With 16 divisions, sometimes I fail to remember who's exactly in which ones.
Don't we miss the old Cape? Don't we miss the old Cape Atlantic League, where it was easy to cover or at least I do. It was easy to cover those 8 teams, right?
Yeah, but it is the division with Cedar Creek and Camden and Willingboro and Delsea and Camden. So, it's a very, very competitive division as well.
Well, either way, I'll tell you this too. Okay, so you have a lot of tweets last night, including a tweet about Shawnee and the Renegades. I mean, my goodness. And I think your comment was something along the lines of, look, just to go back to back is impressive, but to do 3 in a row, and that's what Shawnee did last night. And of course, that has impact down here because Ocean City, the Red Raiders, were really enjoying the ride, and then they run into the Renegades last night, and what a tough team they went up against.
Yeah, Shawnee is a team that year in and year out is always in the mix, always competitive, and you can never count them out. And I think if winning 3 championships in a row and you can do it almost somewhat quietly, I think that's Shawnee. And last year that they were a team that was a sub 500 team for a good part of the year, and really had played a tough schedule, but just hadn't won games. And then they put together a run to get to a sectional championship and win another one. So Tim Gushew's does a great job over there with those guys. They're as dedicated as anybody else, and obviously to win 3 championships in a row, it's more than just having some good players. I mean, you've got to really keep kids focused and see that dedication, on a daily basis, and they seem to be able to do that. So if you go back through the history of South Jersey football, to win 3 championships in a row, especially in the groups of higher enrollment, Group 4, Group 5, it doesn't happen very often at all. So they've put it together this year. They were a much stronger team during the regular season, a much more experienced team this year than they were a year ago, and a lot of those kids that went through that kind of that lull last year and ultimately up to the to the top and winning that title, were back this year, and they did not allow the regular season to kind of go the same way. So they take advantage of the situation, and they'll play Hamilton in that South Central 4 regional championship game up at Rutgers in I believe it's December 7th and 8th weekend. So that's going to be a huge weekend for South Jersey, Central Jersey football, because a lot of these teams that have won last night and will have an opportunity to win today will have Thanksgiving games, so that will push them back to the final weekend of the football season. So Rutgers is obviously going to be a very, very popular place in 2 weekends.
Yeah, and what do you know, Kevin? There'll be a competitive football from both sides at Rutgers Stadium, or High Point Solutions, or whatever it's called now. SHI Stadium or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't want to go there, so I appreciate you taking.
Yeah, I had no problem. You set that ball up nice for me. Hillside wins in South Jersey Group 2. You talked about how impressive it is to three-peat. Willingboro, we mentioned. Wilson and Pensgrove have chances today. St. Joe plays today. It could be setting up a St. Joe Holy Spirit rematch so that those two could see each other. Where will Kevin Minnick be today?
Let's see. Today I'm going to Pensgrove, and we're going to see the Group 1 game with Pensgrove and Paulsboro. Pensgrove comes in. They've won 24 in a row right now. They haven't lost in 2 years, and the last team they knocked off Paulsboro in week 3 or 4 of this year, and the last team to knock off Pensgrove was Paulsboro, and that was in the sectional final in 2017. So, there's a lot to play for today. Obviously, it's going to be I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. It looks like the weather's going to be great, and I think it's going to come down to, it's going to be a running back battle between Bashal Tootin from Paulsboro and Nasir Hollywood Robinson from Pensgrove. Both kids, in the first time they played, rushed for over 200 yards apiece. I don't know that we're going to see that again, but I think we're going to see a hard-hitting game with teams that are going to want to run the football with those two kids. So, people have been advised to get there early. There is going to be some increased security, and they have made that known. So, if you're looking for a game, and running the football is your something that you really care about and like to see, that's probably the game to go to this afternoon. But as you mentioned, St. Joe will also be playing today. They're a team that they've had a lot of breaks during the course of this season, a lot of byes, and I know that they would much rather have a game to plan for on a week-by-week basis, but it just didn't break that way, and I think St. Joe will be ready to play today, and you may see a performance out of Jada Byers today that matches what Patrick Smith did for Holy Spirit last night. So I think, for fans in that area and St. Joe fans in particular, I think that's going to be a great game for them as well.
McGarry said some kids don't have 7 touchdowns in their entire career. That's what Cheek Smith did last night for Holy Spirit. 7 touchdowns. Incredible, right? Hey, Kevin Minnick, we appreciate your time each and every Saturday here on the Pete Thompson Show. Again, follow him on Twitter at KMinnick Sports, KMINNICK Sports all together. And it's NJ Advanced Media. NJ.com is where you can find his work. Please support Kevin because he does such a great job, including, and we didn't even get to touch on it, Warren Wolf passes away, the legendary brick football coach. You can find that up on NJ.com too. I'm sure you have plenty of good stuff there as well. Kev, thank you so much.
Hey, no problem, Pete. I welcome the opportunity every week, and finally, I think we're gonna turn to some championship games again today, and in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we end the season on a really high note.
Yeah, positive note, and let's get to the new normal, as they say. That seems like a buzzword.